So Paras, what do you think what's happening there? Like why is Facebook unable to innovate or whatever the bets it's taking, is it going to materialize into substantial gains for the shareholder value?
I'm sure, yeah, we'll come to MetaQuest Pro, but since you're talking about the shareholder value, I think the key takeaway for me is that the markets really discount for all the risks very nicely, especially after that Cambridge Analytica fiasco that happened, and the way he was brought to the, what do you call that, Senate.
Yeah.
So he was in the front of the senators there. He was being questioned by people who don't even know what the tech is.
Yeah.
So I think markets have sort of factored in that there are eyes of politicians on this company, and he is playing around with a lot of data. The company is playing around with a lot of data, and as data privacy becomes more and more important, like in a way, data privacy is a enemy of Meta, right? So if data privacy keeps becoming more important and eventually governments also step in, it'll be very bad for Meta. Other side of thing, I think the trajectory really changed after Apple became very data privacy pro. The ad revenue is what Meta relies on, right? Essentially. And that profit pool really lies with iOS users, who are now, every time someone installs a Facebook groups app, chooses ask app not to track. A lot of people, I'm sure, do, which essentially just nulls the whole point that with so much data you can predict what the person is going to buy next. Now they don't have that analytics. Though the revenues, it's not like the revenues have started to decline, but I think markets have already factored in that there are things that at macro level are happening. And if you see the trend line, the financial future of the company is also at risk. The meta part of Facebook is, I think, very early into very early stages right now. So probably that's why it's near to what it was or what it used to be, else it would have been probably much more down.
But it is so surprising, like for a company which is upwards of $400 billion in market cap, it suddenly first imagine the kind of bad PR it would have gone through and the kind of sentiment that would have boiled down in the board meetings, right? That hey, this is a juggernaut that we have built, but the press is so bad that we'll change the name itself and we'll try to create a new identity of this beast, and hopefully people with short-term memory may forget, right? So
that theory has not worked out.
yeah, at least maybe a short-term effect, but I think 5 years down the line, and this happened with a lot of Indian companies as well, right? Axis Bank was UTI Bank.
I mean, the name change actually does not happen necessarily because of the bad PR. Like we discussed also in one of the pod earlier, that it generally happens because of the structural change which has to come into the company, right? I mean, the head of the Facebook, where next the person can grow into the role. If that role is not there, then the company has to like transform into a newer organization, which happened with Alphabet, right?
The umbrella org has to come.
Correct. Yeah. The umbrella had to increase.
But is Meta umbrella organization or it's just a
Facebook app is one of the app now.
Oh yeah, of course.
Instagram is one,
exactly,
WhatsApp is one.
Right. Yeah. So now Meta has like multiple.
Future vision of the company as a whole also, right? Like we've seen examples like Grofers being renamed to kind of Blinkit, right? It resonates with what they now give as value. Grofers related to groceries, right? Blinkit is like instant. So when they moved into more of instant delivery, they named themselves as, right, similar. So Meta, obviously, it's to get the larger vision that they'll be focusing majorly on metaverse, right? So I think that was one major reason. At least that's a story, that's the narrative that they will like to put it around. Obviously, there was some element of the brand name being diluted because of multiple issues, which made it even more lucrative to get the name changed. But that I think from a longer goal perspective, it was more aligned to what they want to do 5 years, 10 years down the lane.
No, that's what they are already doing. I think Meta is the biggest metaverse company right now. They have all the attention of people in digital spaces. When people are on Instagram, when people are on WhatsApp, when people are on Facebook, they hardly care about what is happening around them. So it is very much the biggest metaverse.
Paras, before we discuss if Facebook is a metaverse company already, Meta is a metaverse company, can you please explain for the audience as well, like what is the metaverse? why are people going bonkers about it? Why did a $400 billion juggernaut decided to take its course of action and stream as the metaverse? When is it hitting? When is it happening? What is this mammoth change that's happening in the world?
Sure, I mean, there are multiple ways of looking at it, but I'll tell you the most crude ones. I think metaverse is a big fantasy that of people in tech, which I think the conversations around it got triggered very nicely after Ready Player One, when people saw how like the book all existed since a long time, but Steven Spielberg in 2018 then turned it into a movie, and such a great director turning such a great book into a movie just gave everyone that vision of how a virtual world could look like. And it just had so many possibilities. So there was so much hope, there was so much excitement. It's the next front that people started to see, at least in conversations. I think that Ready Player One movie was sort of the pivotal point, because I meet so many people working on metaverse, and almost every time at least the founders make a reference to that movie. That we got inspired by Ready Player One. We saw what was happening in Ready Player One, or we read Ready Player One,
or by Snow Crash.
Or by Snow Crash. Snow Crash is another one. So I think fiction has really given the birth to science fiction has given birth to metaverse. But it so happens that the way we are looking at today's definition, it makes so much more sense to not limit the concept of metaverse to a 3D virtual world, but extend it to the concept of digital space and time. So what it means is that if at any point of time I care more about my digital space than my physical space, then that moment I am in metaverse. So for example, if I'm on Instagram for 3 hours, I'm scrolling the feed, I'm not caring about what's happening in my surroundings. So I am in the metaverse of Instagram, just that the metaverse is 2D right now. I'm seeing people in there. I'm seeing people doing things in there. It's not like the real world. The rules are different, but I'm very much in that metaverse. So that for me is metaverse's more inclusive definition. Other one I told you in the beginning, the Ready Player One.
What do you think, Ayush, about this?
Yeah, I mean, definitely we don't know like what's going to be the true metaverse. It's more like Paras said, that it's that tipping point when we start spending more time in digital space and the line gets blurred between our physical presence and the digital presence, right? If we are taking during COVID, we were all taking meetings on Zoom, right? That's being in a virtual space, in a digital space. We're not no more bound by physical limitations of place, time, and all those things, right? So I mean, yeah, that's more like being part of the metaverse. And why Meta or Facebook is trying to take that charge, because they have the biggest user base. They have the largest user base in that digital realm that we are talking about, right? I mean, it's a 2D space right now. It can be a 3D space tomorrow. It can be an immersive AR, VR experience. That's like, so Zuckerberg wants to try all those frontiers from 2D space to AR and eventually maybe hologram and different other things, right? So that's why they are like spending $10 billion on metaverse in the coming years, and actually the founder of Sandbox, which is also making one of the metaverse in decentralized manner. So there is a difference in open metaverse and a closed metaverse. If a company owns your data, then it's a closed metaverse. So Sandbox is building an open metaverse. He was saying that $10 billion won't be enough to actually bring metaverse to life, which means Sebastian. So which means it's going to take more resources, more people, and more than one company to actually bring the real metaverse that people are imagining about.
So we're saying $10 billion
won't be enough.
Won't be enough
Won't be enough at all
to bring metaverse to life.
Correct.
Interesting.